I was 6, glowing with the excitement of becoming a big sister. I pictured myself helping my little sibling, teaching them silly games, and basking in our parents' shared pride. But the reality was far from the rosy image I had painted in my head. The shift was gradual but unrelenting. My parents' focus shifted completely, like a spotlight swiveling off me and onto her. Suddenly, I wasn't the star of my family's world anymore. I wasn't even a supporting character. When she was born, her needs overshadowed everything else, including me. I was moved to the basement, a cold, dimly lit space that smelled of mildew and loneliness. They said she needed to be closer to Mom and Dad. I said nothing, but it hurt more than I could express. The warm glow of being near them, hearing their conversations and laughter, was replaced by silence. I'd lie awake in the damp stillness, straining to hear the faint echoes of life upstairs, feeling like I had been banished. My toys didn't survive her curiosity either. One by one, they fell victim to her unintentional destruction. Those toys were my solace, my escape. Watching them break and crumble in her tiny hands felt like watching pieces of myself shatter. I tried to explain this to my parents. I didn't want much, just acknowledgement of how much it hurt. Instead, I was dismissed with a condescending, "She doesn't understand. You're the big sister, you need to be more patient." Each time they said it, the words carved deeper into me. The laptop was the breaking point. It wasn't just any laptop, it was a gift from school for excelling in my studies, something I was proud of. But she destroyed it. Completely. My teachers were furious, my parents blamed me for being careless, and no one, not a single person, thought to ask if it wasn't entirely my fault. It wasn't about the laptop, it was about what it represented, a tiny piece of recognition for me, obliterated in a matter of moments. Balancing my role as a sister and trying to hold on to a semblance of a normal life felt impossible. Every time she needed something, I was expected to drop everything. It didn't matter if I was studying, spending time with friends, or even just trying to breathe. My life revolved around her, whether I liked it or not. One day, I decided to rebel in the smallest way possible. I turned off my phone and went to watch the new Spider-Man movie with my friend, Jake. For those 2 hours, I let myself forget the constant tug of responsibility. I laughed, I cheered, I felt free. But when I turned my phone back on after the movie, the deluge of missed calls and angry texts yanked me back to reality. I rushed home, my stomach sinking with every step. The guilt and dread twisted inside me like a storm, and I knew what was waiting before I even stepped through the door. My parents were livid. Their words stung more than I thought possible. "You're irresponsible. We needed you, and you disappeared for a movie." They couldn't, or wouldn't, understand that I needed a break. Just 2 hours. Their anger was unrelenting, and I was grounded for choosing a moment of normalcy. Sitting in my room that night, staring at the walls, I felt trapped. It wasn't about the movie. It was about wanting to be seen as something more than a caretaker. The resentment built with every dismissal, every overlooked moment of my own life. When I was chosen to give a speech at school, a recognition of my hard work and talent, it felt like my chance. My parents promised to be there, and for the first time in ages, I let myself believe they would show up for me. But they didn't. Standing at that podium, scanning the crowd for their faces, my heart broke. I gave the speech anyway, but the applause at the end felt hollow. Walking home, tears streaming down my face, I realized that nothing would ever change. College was my one lifeline, a chance to dream of escape. But even that hope was crushed when my dad made a joke about me choosing a lucrative career so I could care for my sister when they were gone. His laugh rang hollow in my ears. That comment was the final straw. I snapped, pouring years of frustration into a torrent of words. I yelled, I cried, but they didn't hear me. Their faces were blank, as if I was speaking in a foreign language. No comfort came, no apology followed. I stormed to my room, slamming the door behind me, and waited for them to check on me. Hours passed. Then a day. Nothing. And that's when it hit me, something had to change. One night, Driven by a mix of desperation and determination, I packed a bag. Essentials only. I didn't have a plan, but I knew one thing: I couldn't stay trapped any longer. Staring at my phone, I hesitated before hitting send. I texted him to say I was coming over, half expecting him to talk me out of it or maybe even call my parents. But he didn't. His reply was simple: doors open. Staying with Grandpa has been different. Eye-opening, really. It's not like we're having heart-to-heart moments every second of the day, but there's a calmness here that I hadn't realized I needed. He lets me breathe, lets me be. We've talked about college, about what I might want for my future, and for the first time in forever, I'm thinking about what I want without this crushing guilt or stress. He's encouraging, supportive, and for once, the future doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like possibility. In just a week, I've felt more like myself than I have in years. We've shared meals, watched old movies, and he's told me stories about when he was my age. It's been nice, simple and freeing in a way I didn't know I needed. I even started researching colleges again, but this time, I'm looking into programs that interest me, not the ones I thought would make enough money to support my sister. Staying here with Grandpa has given me a glimpse of what life could look like, a life where I'm not just a caretaker, and I want to hold on to that. The outpouring of support from so many people has been overwhelming. I never expected my story to resonate like this, but it has. Reading everyone's encouragement, I've realized something important: I don't despise my sister. It's not her fault she was born this way. My resentment wasn't about her, not really. My parents came to talk to me after my breakdown, but I couldn't bring myself to speak. I just cried and asked them to leave. That's when arrangements were made for me to stay with Grandpa for now, to give me space to breathe and collect myself. I finally opened up to Grandpa, told him everything: how it's been at home, how I've been my sister's full-time caregiver, and how everything came crashing down after my dad's thoughtless joke about college. His reaction shocked me. I knew he'd be upset, but his anger was palpable. Grandpa, who's usually so calm and collected, was horrified. When I told him that my sister was supposed to have professional help but wasn't getting it, he was furious. He said things I can't even repeat, but the gist was clear: it wasn't right, it wasn't safe, and it certainly wasn't fair. It turns out my parents had been telling everyone in the family that a professional caregiver was in place for my sister. Worse, they'd been taking money from relatives to pay for this supposed caregiver. The truth, that I'd been doing it all, was a gut punch to the family. Grandpa wasn't the only one outraged. Aunts, uncles, and cousins have been reaching out, shocked by the lies and by how much I've been shouldering alone. Grandpa told me not to speak to my parents unless he was present, and honestly, that was a relief. He's been my shield, my advocate, in a way I didn't even know I needed. The rest of my family has been stepping up too. They've been bringing meals, checking in, and listening, really listening. For the first time in forever, I feel seen, not as a caretaker or a problem to solve, but as a person. It's overwhelming, but in the best way possible. The talk with my parents on Saturday was a disaster. No apologies, no understanding, just excuses and this twisted belief that I was somehow born to be my sister's caretaker. My dad even said it outright, as if my entire existence was meant to serve that purpose. I couldn't hold back. I confronted them about everything: the lies, the money, the emotional toll it's all taken, but they dodged it all. By the end, it felt like every bridge between us had burned. That night, I decided I couldn't go back. Grandpa and my uncle agreed. Today, I'm officially moving out and starting fresh. It feels surreal, packing up my life into boxes and bags, but it also feels right. My aunt even promised to send the money she used to give my parents directly to me, so I can use it for college. It's like pieces of a new future are falling into place. My parents have called a few times since I left, but not to apologize. They just want to know when I'm coming back. It's clear they don't understand why I had to leave, and maybe they never will. But for the first time, I feel like I have control over my life. It's terrifying, but it's also freeing. I've come to a hard truth: I don't hate my sister. I love her deeply, and the anger I thought I felt toward her was misplaced. She's not to blame for how my parents chose to handle things. Someday, I hope I can make that right. For now, leaving is about finding myself, figuring out who I am beyond all of this. It's going to be a journey, but I'm ready for it.